Worked for the Department of Homeland Security for a couple years.
Wow.
And I was like, all right, this is awesome, until I went to buy my first house. Here, I'm like risking my life every day, working 50, 55 hours a week with overtime, making $40,000 a year. And this is what a real estate agent does? I gotta get in this. Leads are the fundamental piece of this real estate business, that if you don't have leads, you really don't have anything.
How many people do you know in this industry get into this industry to make their schedule and make it an easy schedule, right?
Everyone wants freedom and flexibility, and the freedom and flexibility is what causes most to fail. In July of '05, I got my license. Until December, I closed 6 deals that first 6 months in the business. Then the next year, 19, then 24, just in time for the market to implode.
It humbles you fast. You can do a role play with AI and make the AI person however you want to be, an angry seller, an upset seller, or a buyer who's hesitant to list.
It makes everything else easier, more efficient, and the skill isn't AI, it's knowing how to prompt.
I don't think it's here to replace us. I think it's here to help us become more efficient. All right, so I'm here with Lee Rosa. You are a coach, team leader at the Keller Williams Aventura, and you're a coach for Glover U. And ironically, we've known each other, before real estate, middle school. I think we went to middle school together. Actually, I don't think we went to middle school together. Walter C. Young. We were like the opening class of that school.
Indeed.
And then we went to high school together.
Yep.
Where you also ran track, and I didn't, but I know that that's where you're from. I remember seeing your newspaper articles. And so, we've had a long relationship, kind of diverted for a little bit. And then we kind of connected again with real estate. And I ran into you recently at the Glover U Summit in January, and I just kind of wanted to, meet up with you again. And we had some great conversations, and I figured it'd be a good time to talk about our career paths and what's been going on. So
grateful to be here.
Yeah, awesome. So let's deep dive in. How'd you get into this?
So how did I get into real estate? Man, well, as you shared, I ran track and cross country, went to the University of Central Florida, ran Division I track and cross country for them, scholarship. When I graduated with a criminal justice degree, wow. I thought I was gonna be a career government guy. Worked for the Department of Homeland Security for a couple years, right after 9/11. And my job was to make sure no airplanes blew up.
Wow.
And I was like, all right, this is awesome, until I went to buy my first house. And I was 24 years old, and my real estate agent was one of my fraternity brothers. Shout out to Brian Saver. And he's a rock star agent. And I was like, wow, this is what you do? Here I'm like risking my life every day, working 50, 55 hours a week with overtime, making $40,000 a year with overtime. And this is what a real estate agent does? I got to get in this. And
that's a big difference. And that's like, going from government and basically saving thousands and thousands of lives. And then you're like, okay, wait a minute, I'm risking my life. But there's some risk in real estate too.
Oh, I learned this. I learned this. But then the conversation was, well, when I first got in '05, is that real estate always appreciates. Real estate always appreciates. And so when I wanted to explore the possibilities, he said, why don't you come check out the brokerage that I'm at? And I did. And so I met with the broker in 2005. And this was like April-ish of 2005. And the broker said, you want to get into real estate? I said, I sure do. He said, come tomorrow at 6:30 in the morning. I'll meet you here. And so I came in. Now, mind you, my shift started at 12:30 to 9. And so I came in at 6:30 in the morning, and he said, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to put in this VHS tape of the script workout, and it was a workout of what to say. And I was like, oh, he's like, yeah, you just learn what to say. And I was like, really? It's like, yep, that's step number one. Then 7 o'clock in the morning, you're going to watch the guys get on the phones, and they're going to call expired listings. And I was like, okay. And then they're going to call for sale by owners. And then they're going to do some circle prospecting and some follow-up. And by then it should be around 10:30, 11. You can go to your shift. I was like, and I could do that? He's like, yeah, you should do that every day until you get your license in July. And then we can have a plan, because that was kind of the idea, is do the 63 hours over a period of time, and still
Make a living.
yeah,
Make
right,
a living.
right. Let's not blow everything up.
Yeah.
And so I learned that starting in July that I only had 6 months until I vested with the government. I hit my 3-year mark. 10:30, 11 would go to my shift, and then go to
So
sleep.
you were ironically putting like 16, 17-hour days almost.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
if you were up to be somewhere at 6:30, you're up earlier. So then you started at 12:30, worked till 9 p.m. By the time you got back home, it was almost probably, and settled down to 11, 12 o'clock. You were getting 4 or 5 hours sleep.
Oh yeah. But I
So
was
you were
like,
grinding.
I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do.
That's what it's supposed to take.
He said,
That's what it takes.
you do this, you're gonna win. And so from
It's funny.
July,
How many people do you know in this industry get into this industry to make their schedule and make it an easy schedule, right? Everybody's like, I'm going to be a realtor. It's a great schedule. I'm like, really?
yeah, everyone wants freedom and flexibility, and the freedom and flexibility is what causes most to fail.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you had that 16, 15-hour work days going for a minute.
Yeah, man. And then in July of 05, I got my license. Until December, I closed 6 deals that first 6 months in the business because I had built this momentum of being on the phones for those 2 or 3 months, following an exact script so that I could stay in compliant of not having a real estate license. And anytime I would set an appointment, I would defer it over or go with another agent and let them lead it. And so July to December of 05, I closed 6 deals. Then the next year, 19, then 24, just in time for the market to implode.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a tough year for me.
Yeah, man.
That was a crazy. I remember exactly when it all started coming down. First subprime lender goes down, and I thought I had made it. I'd been in the industry right out of school. So I started at 19 years old, and I thought I made it. I was like, oh man, I made it at 9 years. And when the market left me like basically with nothing. And I was like, oh boy, this job.
Humble.
Yeah. It humbles you fast. Especially when you got to live off your savings for a couple of years to try to figure, and expecting my second child. So it's a tough one.
So fun fact, I had built $60,000 of debt over my first couple years in the business. Not because I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do. It was the short sale game.
Yeah.
And I paid it off. And then because I'm such a quick learner, I built $30,000 of debt right away. And this is where kind of everything starts to come into shape for my career. And it was I was in Orlando still, and my grandfather had just passed away. This is 2009. And I was sitting Shiva with my family, and it just dawned on me that my mom was going to have to take care of my grandma at some level, at some point. And here I am in Orlando, my brother's in Orlando, and something's got to give. But I was $30,000 in debt. And I said, all right, it's 2009. By 2011, I'll get out of debt. I'll never have debt again. And I'm going to make the move to South Florida. Because one thing is true in entrepreneurship, or at least in our real estate business, is nothing happens fast.
Right.
Right? Real estate's a 100-day cycle. And so if I was to move with debt, I would be acquiring more debt because I'm not going to have business for at least 100 days, income for at least 100 days.
Easy.
So I had this 2-year plan, say from 2009 to 2011, get out of debt, have a nest egg, make the move, and do this the right way. And so I approached a buddy of mine who I started with in 05 at that brokerage. And I said, hey man, I'm moving home. And he goes, I'm moving home too. He grew up in Hialeah. I grew up in Pembroke Pines. And he goes, I'm moving home too. And I said, well, let's put our heads together. Let's do this. He had this uncanny ability to embrace repetitious boredom as a telephone prospector. And I have this sixth sense of leadership and models and systems and processes. And I said, I have a proposition. You have 40, 50 listings. I had like 11 at the time. And I knew that leads are the fundamental piece of this real estate business, that if you don't have leads, you really don't have anything.
Yeah.
And for me to generate the amount of closings, to generate the amount of revenue to get out of debt, I needed listings, because listings are what attracts buyers. And every listing should bring 2 sales. So I had 11, he had 50. I was like, yo, if everything makes sense and this whole thing works out, let's take the RGT to go from the Ralph Goicoria team to the Rosa Goicoria team. When we get to South Florida, let me earn that. And he said, okay, let's see that. 15 years later, 2,000 closings under our belt. Here we are, still rocking and rolling. Now, we sold both markets, Orlando and Miami, from 2011 to 2014. The very first year we came together in 2011, we sold 111 homes.
That's
just like that.
Yeah.
And really never, ever looked back.
So you guys are like yin and yang. It worked out. And that's not easy to find.
By definition, yin and yang.
Yeah.
He is an expressive driver and I am an analytical driver. And so we both have this polar opposite, expressive and analytical. And yet when the going gets tough, we have that mutual respect.
Then you can come together and make the applications happen so that it works. That's really the hardest part, right? And we'll talk a little bit about that because I used to let the ego get in my way a lot. And I think that's a big game changer for me. And we'll get into that. Ego's huge. And if you can put your ego aside, you're going to do well.
Yeah.
Especially when you're already a producing agent, it's hard to do that. It's hard to put your ego aside and move, you know? So now team lead, Keller Williams Aventura, team lead, business owner, obviously broker owner, you have your team.
Mm-hmm.
And you're also a coach.
Yeah.
So how did that happen? How did you all of a sudden say, you know what? I want to be a coach?
3 months into the business, I hired my first coach.
Which is unbelievable because so many people don't do that, including myself. I'm guilty of it. 25 years in business, I just got my first coach.
Yeah. That first brokerage, was
it part of your debt?
Yes. Yes. When I looked back at that first 30, a large portion of that wasn't necessarily my cost of living. It was going to every event I could. It was investing $12,000+ a year in having a coach and really getting a Jaguar, which I had no business getting at the time.
But you wanted it.
Of course. And the moment I started going to events, and I realized that most entrepreneurs don't do what they're taught. They just go and keep going and learn, but never implement. I realize I'm not lifting bags anymore. I'm not killing myself working for the government. Let me invest all this energy in something that will pay dividends.
Right.
And one day, if I do this right, I'll have the honor to lead others. And so it was 3 months in when I went to my first event, hired a coach right from that event. I said, I'm going to be a student of the game. I'm going to embrace model systems, those sit on the shoulder of giants, and truly pour and be an advocate for the industry and best practices.
You had that light bulb go off really early in your career because it just went off for me 3 years ago. Probably I had the aha moment of like, okay, I'm limiting myself. Yeah, I'm in that limited belief system.
Yeah,
everything you hear at these conferences. And I got to give it to my top salesperson, Julie, who's been with me we've worked together since 2000. It's crazy. You know, I've known her for that long. She's the one that said, we need to go to this conference for Mortgage Fuse. And I'm like, I don't need to go. I'm like, I know how to do loans. And I'm thinking I'm going there to learn how to take a loan app and calculate income. And that's what in my head,
right.
You know, that limiting belief, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm like, all right, fine. She finally books us the first conference to go to. COVID happens. Conference get canceled. I'm like, yes, I didn't want to go anyway. Finally, year comes back. She's like, we're going. Hurricane was coming. Our flights got canceled. She goes, I found this new flights on Spirit and it's still leaving. I'm like, all right, let's go. We did it. Took us 20 hours to get to Vegas with all the connections. It was wild, but we got it. And I left that conference on fire. On fire. So I mean, my first big mistake that everybody does, right? They get their notes and you got 40 pages of, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. Well, guess what? You can't do it all. And I think that's one of the things that the coaching helped me with and talking to people. It's like, go to these conferences, pick 2 or 3 things and implement. Yeah. And then go to your next conference and get 2 or 3 things and implement. And that was one of the biggest things. You're very fortunate. You picked it up young that you were like, all right, I'm going to go this route. Yeah. When I did it the hard knocks, right? Like I went that way and I thought that I was it. I made it. I'm blessed with the sales ability. So I thought I'm good. I can't learn anything else. Well, no, you can learn a lot. And I'm continuing to learn every day.
So it's about just finding efficiencies. And I learned at the very beginning about models and systems. And over the years, I learned the real definitions, or the definitions that I subscribed to for them. I just was always taught, you do this. Like, I was in the business 2.5 years until I realized that I was one of the few on the phones for 3 to 4 hours every single day.
Yeah.
Like 2.5 years.
That statistic probably still exists, right? Of agents on the phone.
But just imagine, I thought that's what everybody did. Like, I was in such a bubble because that's all the brokerage was. That first brokerage.
That's awesome.
Was shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
In a room just like this, maybe another like 2 feet than this room. And it was desks on this side, desks on that side.
Yep.
You either had an earplug and a headset, or 2 headsets,
double
2
headset.
phones, and then you had a piece of paper with all the numbers that you would highlight different colors. Left hand, right hand.
Yep.
And everyone was shoulder to shoulder.
And do you remember how good you could dial a phone number with your fingers?
Totally.
Amazing.
Totally.
Yeah, it's amazing how quick we could dial. I'm telling you, I know, because that's how I started. We were in a room of 30 brokers in a big room, and we had 3 feet, just enough for the fire marshal to get by in between the desk. No dividers, nothing. Looked like Boiler Room, or Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
And literally our leads were a legal size paper, a highlighter, and a ruler. Yeah. And we were just calling and making our little notes of who to call back. We did 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours at night. We prospected in mortgages 4 hours a day. But it worked.
That's the fundamental piece of sales, is that if you don't have an appointment, what are you doing?
Right.
Like, we don't get paid to work. You get paid to close deals, and you can't close a deal if you don't have a client. Don't have a client, you got to set an appointment. If you can't set an appointment, you got to have conversations with people.
I laugh because it sounds so basic. And yet so many people, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's 80-20, 90-10. How many, the way I look at it is there's so many agents they'll do 5-6 transactions a year. And you've got those people that are doing 30 that can get to 50. Mm-hmm. You got those people that are doing 80, 90, and you're wondering how they're doing it. Well, this is what they're doing, right? They're breaking out of their shell. They're not limiting that this is all they can do. And they're getting out there and they're hiring coaches and they're going out to conferences. I mean, now I try to go to, look, we reconnected at a real estate conference. I don't even sell real estate. No. I went to the real estate conferences. I know realtors are my client and I need to know what you guys are learning so that I can help you get better. Yeah. And I think those are when you let your ego get out of the way and you let yourself grow, it's huge. It's huge. And honestly, coaching is really, that's a great story and how you did it. So you knew right from the get-go eventually this was it.
I share this and it sounds cliche when it's said, but that I literally pinch myself every day that I have the ability and the honor to lead others. I mean, I'm right now at 33 clients that invest 5 figures a year to have 30-minute calls. And I don't take that for granted in any way. And I'm still a student of the game of coaching, because there's a fundamental difference between coaching and training.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I told you earlier, we were talking during lunch, and I said, it's funny, when I hired my coach, he's like, hey, just so you know, I'm not your therapist. Yeah. He's like, this isn't therapy. This is coaching. And they kind of, because the first time I guess I was kind of just doing a whole complaint session maybe, right? And that's not the case. That's not the case. You guys aren't there to hear our complaints. You're here to help us grow.
Yeah, man. And my cadence that has worked for my clients is we start every call with numbers, a series of numbers that are the language of real estate. And then we flow into homework, which I take pride in doing prep work before every single week for all of my clients, so that I am aware of what we talked about, what homework was assigned.
Because for 33 clients.
Yeah.
They're not all getting the same homework assignment.
Oh, absolutely not. And the awesome part of when you get into a client flow like this is math comes into play. Because if it's 5 minutes of prep with 33 clients, you're over 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it's not 5 minutes of prep.
Right. How are you prepping in 5 minutes?
Right.
That's pretty impressive.
Right.
Well, we're going to talk about some strategies I know you do use, but yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, man. It's about having a system. And so a model is borrowing the best thinking, and a system is a process or procedure that determines how things get done. And so we'll get into some specifics of this later. And yet the basis of this is anything you do more than once, anything we do should have a system built around it. So you're not just making things up.
You know, it's funny, like I'm talking 25 years ago, probably 20, one of the first area managers we had, he's like, he said the same thing. Everything has a system. He's like, when you get up in the morning, I guarantee your routine is similar.
Yes.
99%, unless something weird happens, like the power went out. He's like, you brush your teeth, you start with the same side every morning, right? You wash your face, you have a certain way to do it. You know your routine. Everybody has that same routine. And there's one thing I did learn. He taught me that humans are we're lazy and we find the path of least resistance. And I was like, what do you mean by the path of least resistance? He's like, yeah, once you learn your 10-step process, I promise you're going to find the way to cut 2 or 3 out of them, and that's going to hurt you. Mm-hmm. And I took that and I applied it in sales, right? We used to have a 5 or 6 step system on how to communicate with buyers, communicate with sellers, refinance clients. Mm-hmm. And once you start wanting to do more business and get efficient, you start cutting steps out that are important, that are time consuming, and you lose a sale. And, you know, which is going to lead me into my next thing, because I know that you're big into AI.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to use it more and more and more. And I've learned what the use is for, but I want to hear from you who coaches. And I know you've taught I saw you at the Glover U in January, the summit. You were teaching about AI. Yes. Talk to me a little about your experience with AI, what you're doing with it.
Yeah. So the moment that I was exposed to the idea, the first thing I thought about was Sarah Connor and Terminator. Yeah,
that's because that's our group. That's our age group.
Right. Oh yeah. Right. So that was the first thing.
Yeah.
And
Skynet
for sure. And I was like, no. And then I got to the part where I would see that someone was using it, and I'd be like, oh, I see you're using AI. And I think that the moment that I learned that the younger generations, like Gen Z, like they're absolutely living in it. And then I went, oh, wait a second. Like, this isn't going anywhere. And so at that moment, I realized that I need to play in the sandbox. I need to learn it, especially as a coach, to be aware of all the different angles of it. And so I went from pointing, like, why were you using that, you cheater, to there's a better way to do what you're doing with it, and let's talk about that versus jealousy or hater on it. And so my take on AI is this: if you worked in a factory and your warehouse, and your job was to put things on a shelf, pick up boxes, put them on shelves, over time, you're going to go home, be exhausted. Mm-hmm. Over time, you are going to be irritable when you go home. Over time, you're going to get hurt. And truthfully, you lift a bunch of boxes every single day. Mathematically, you're taking years off your life.
Yeah, you're wearing down your body.
1,000%. Mm-hmm. Now, if you could put on an Exoskeleton, and all of a sudden now, like go gadget arms, and you can now lift things up and move boxes left and right, you're going home happier. You're going home not hurt, and everything is better.
You're not worn down.
Yeah, and efficient. And that's AI. It makes everything else easier, more efficient. And the skill isn't AI, it's knowing how to prompt. And knowing that not all models or computers, whether it's Perplexity or whether it's Gemini or ChatGPT or Grok, they all aren't equal, and they all have their places. And so once...
I want to just stop real quick, because I know some people in our audience are not even going to know. And I don't want to get into an AI class. When you say prompt, you're not talking about like a C command prompt from MS-DOS. Right. You're talking about basically describing to the AI what you want.
Yeah, so for example, I haven't taken a class on how to prompt. I've never gone to school for it. And yet, before I do anything that I'm trying to do some heavy lifting, lift some heavy boxes, I'm going to ask, so if we use ChatGPT or Gemini for this example, I'm going to say what my desired outcome is. And I'm going to stay in an interaction with it to build out a prompt for it to tell me what the best thing to copy and paste to get to get a consistent desired outcome each time. So whether it's a scenario to ask questions, well, I'm not going to be like, hey, what are the best questions to ask? I'm going to give some background and give some context and share what my style is. And I'm going to go back and forth like the prompt is my friends, and I'm having a human interaction with it back and forth and back and forth. And then even at the end, I'm going to ask, is there anything I didn't ask or any details that were missing that you would add to this? Then it's going to give me whatever the answer is. And then I'm going to say, okay, now what should I copy and paste?
Yeah.
And then it's going to give it to me, and boom.
And you know what? I'm going to just, as a tip for everybody,
Yeah.
I don't even type it all. I talk to my AI.
Sure.
I'm not, people might look at me like I'm crazy. I'll be lifting and I'm having a conversation with my chat just to be of what I'm going to do the next day. Yeah. When I was setting up this lounge, I knew nothing about audio, video, lights, nothing. And I must have had pages and pages of conversation I went through, and I should have listened to it from the get-go. I didn't. I went the cheaper route on a couple things. And then at the end, I felt like it wanted to tell me I told you so. It seems like you're going back to my original suggestion. And there's so many different language models. Yeah. I suggest, and I don't want to get into a crazy deep dive on it, but you're right, 100%. AI is there I like your example with the Exoskeleton. Like, I think that's awesome. It's like basically you're controlling a robot, putting stuff away for you. You're basically controlling another, I look at it like an assistant, right? Yeah. Like, if somebody's asking me some tough questions, I can pull them into chat and say, hey, how would you answer this as loan officer Joey, right? I've learned his personalities, it's learned me. Mm-hmm. It's an incredible tool. I think the biggest thing and I know everybody hears this, and I want to reiterate it with someone who's a pro at it, knows it, it's not here to replace us. No. It's not, I don't think it's here to replace us. I think it's here to help us become more efficient.
For sure.
And I think the people it's going to replace is going to be the people that don't use it.
Amen.
And that's awesome. And I got to listen to you at the Glover U Summit, and it was incredible.
Yeah.
The way you were talking about it, and I was like, one thing I took from your thing was the coaching, how you can do a role play.
Yeah.
With AI and make the AI person however you want to be, an angry seller, an upset seller, mm-hmm. or a buyer who's hesitant to list. And so I came back after that. I didn't know you could do that. It's embarrassing to say that. I didn't know you could do that. So I came back and I was like, all right, nobody likes to role play. Mm-hmm. Nobody likes it. So I'm like, I don't mind role playing because I grew up role playing. That's what we did. And I was like, let's try this out. So I put it on our speaker in the office, hooked it to my Bluetooth, and I'm like, all right, guys, check this out. And I did a role playing with a buyer who was on the sideline fence. So we're going to talk about that now. And it gives you all real world suggestions. Then when you talk about language models, you're 100% right. Chat's got a different opinion, then Grok has a different opinion, because they're all modeled off of different, I guess, I wouldn't say technology, different brains. I don't.
Different data points. And years ago, I learned, and here's in my old age, going back, it was like 8 or 9 years ago, I was at an event in Austin, Texas, and I was taught about AI. Like, before it was even a buzzword. And going back, or if I was able to get a DeLorean and go back in time, I would know now to look at every company that surrounds, like NVIDIA, those types of companies, because it's not going anywhere.
No, and it's evolving faster than anything has ever evolved.
Yeah.
It's going faster. If you think about, like, even an iPhone has evolved, right, from the first one to now, but it's a slow evolution. 17 years of iPhone, 16, 17 years. AI, like from last year to this year, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's exponential.
It's lightning fast. We're going to come back to where we were talking about the AI, and I know we were talking about how people use it, how it's moving through the market.
Yeah.
And I told you I role played with it.
Yeah.
Talking about the buyers and what's happened in our markets. I want to kind of talk about and hear your opinion.
Yeah.
You were in the market as long as I've been.
Yeah.
The good part, the bust, and the rebuild. That's what I kind of call it, right? Yeah. The short sales and all that. Yeah. What is your thought of the current market situation? Because I know there's a lot of people that are still sidelined.
Yeah. So The blessing I have with 33 clients all over North America, including Canada, is that I have the perspective of many, many, many different markets,
Wow.
which it takes time to slow down, and you can't bring what we're experiencing here to a market where they're still getting blasted with multiple offers. And I have a client on the West Coast, not a Florida of the country, who they have multiple offers and getting beat out. And so we got to pull out different tools in the toolbox for that.
Yeah, see, I'm South Florida, so I don't even know. That's wild.
It's
So that 5-minute prep work, it's a little more than what we're talking about.
yeah, because I got to meet the client where they are,
Yeah.
where their business is, and what their gaps and opportunities are. And so I believe, again, we have the perspective of 2005, 6, then 9, 10, 11, 12, because the bottom of the market here in South Florida was 09.
Yeah.
In Orlando, when we were selling, the reason we closed up, the main reason we closed up is South Florida was a rocket ship in 2014. And Orlando was still depressed. And so to be in two very different markets,
Yeah.
we just thought Orlando would be better as a referral market than still dealing with
That market direct.
folks that were upside down on their mortgage and dealing with short sales and that whole.
I hate that word. It makes my skin crawl. Short sale just makes my skin. It's such a tough. I think people won't realize what it took to get those done on the real estate side.
It took years off my life.
I believe it.
I mean, just
handled the loan part, so it was easy for me. The buyer was buying an approved short sale, but the real estate side,
yeah, man.
like and surprises at every corner.
We not only you would never know when a deal would close. When you had the listings, we would have. To talk about market. This will be good for the audience. Markets are always cyclical. We hear that all the time, and so in 2010, 11, everyone wanted to sell, but not everyone could do what it took to sell. So if you had your 4 investment properties and you want to do a short sale, the bank's not going to approve your 4th investment property because that's just, they're going to file BK, right? Like, and that's not advice, yet that's the experience that we had. So everyone wanted to sell, but you had to overqualify who you would decide to work with as a listing agent because not all of them could actually sell. They're going to go into foreclosure or go through the foreclosure process, and you're going to lose out because the bank's going to take possession, and we weren't REO agents. Now fast forward to 2021. Everyone wanted to buy.
Oof.
But not everyone could do what it took to buy. And as horrible as that sounds, it was an absolute bloodbath in 2011 of everyone who wanted to sell. Inventory was at an all-time high. We would have 50 to 60 listings and close 7 to 8 a month.
Because you had so much things around uncontrollable.
You would never know when anything would sell, when anything would close. And then you would have a listing at 200,000 Orlando. We sold 111 homes and closed 11 million in volume. Like, what? Yet going to now the experience now, all of these transactional opportunities is why bulletproofing, which is a class I'm teaching on Thursday, bulletproofing is a skill that most real estate agents do not understand and don't know how to use the techniques of that model. And closing thousands of transactions and having our DNA in that many transactions, you learn what works, what doesn't. And so the reason I kind of went down this path is the market today is bipolar, kind of piecing this back together. But the South Florida market has 2 fronts. You got the condo market east, and then you have the suburbia west, Broward, West Diddy, whatever county you want to focus on. You have 2 very different tale of 2 markets. And the disaster in Surfside, Champagne Towers, the ramifications of that took years until
We're finally starting to see some good progress on that now. Not like, sad that that's what had to happen, but now these buildings we're getting condos approved, not like it's nothing. When that first happened, whoa.
right
It's almost like condo financing froze. It was so hard to get a condo.
for sure.
So it's just wild. So with your experience, I mean, so let me ask you straight out, do you think we're going to have a bust? Do you see a 25-30% price correction coming up?
25-30%. See, Orlando saw a 55% adjustment back in the day. $500,000 properties, $500,000 were selling for $235 when we left. When we left that market.
And just so I know, because I had property in Orlando, it was the overdevelopment.
Yeah.
There was so much development at that time. It was oversupply.
Yeah.
Crushed it.
Yeah, suburbia or the urban sprawl.
Yeah.
Went out.
The supply was, I think it was like 3-to-1 or something. It was wild, the supply. And that did make a huge dent, obviously, in Orlando. So
Yeah.
I keep hearing from buyers, and I'm sure you're people you're coaching, and I'm sure people in the office, they're saying, oh, they're waiting for something. Like they're waiting for 3% rates.
Yeah.
They're waiting for the market to crash. Like, what's the right time?
So for me, I think the answer is we grow sales skills. And that doesn't mean be salesy. It means that you understand what their concerns and fears are, and you meet the client where they are. And so what I mean by that is fundamentally, I believe that anyone who is looking to buy anything, but in this case, we're talking about real estate, are payment shoppers.
100%.
And so fundamentally, if someone is approved for $500,000, they're not looking to buy a $500,000 house. They want to buy a $4,000 payment. Well, as long as you can connect the
dots. Yeah, the dots. Let's put it together.
That you got two variables in buying real estate: out-of-pocket cost, monthly payment. Out-of-pocket is down payment, closing costs, inspections, appraisals, repairs, moving costs, and now commission. Boom. That's out-of-pocket. Second is principal, interest, taxes, insurance, mortgage insurance, flood insurance,
Possibly HOA.
and HOA or condo. Absolutely. And so whenever someone's like, I want to buy a $500,000, I want to buy 400, I want to buy 700, it's perfect. Where do you want your payments? You found the perfect home. Where do you want the payment?
It blows my mind that you're saying this. I don't meet many agents that say this. That's how we structure our deals with our clients. A lot of people would say, well, what do you do? We're budget focused. Where's your payment going to be? And if today was a day of closing, what does your out-of-pocket look like? Where are you comfortable writing a check? And they were like, oh, and we work backwards from there. Well, look, here's where you want to be. Here's where you should be buying. And I think when you do that, number one, it's obviously helps them buy. But number two, it shows that you care. You're not just looking at the number. And the biggest thing that I took from what you just said, which I've heard many times, is people don't buy price of the house. They buy payment.
Yeah.
What does your monthly payment look like? And that's really where I think a lot of people need to focus on. And there's so many ways to get people to payment. And in this market today, because right now, would you say I think we're in a buyer's market?
Yeah. Oh, we are.
And we still are. And I don't know how long that window is going to stay open. And I don't know. I wish I do, but I don't. But I got people getting 3% back on seller credits. Yeah. And they're taking that 3%. And I'm like, well, you already had your money for closing costs. Let's buy down your rate. Let's make this payment more affordable for you. Or take that credit, put it in the bank, and apply it as you need it. Right? There's so many things you could do with it.
And that's what makes a skilled agent and partnership with a loan officer working together.
Yeah.
And so whenever you have a consultation, which now is the law, to meet with a client, go over what you do for them, go over the state of the market, get a buyer broker agreement. The whole purpose of meeting is so that you have the ability to be a fiduciary. And you cannot, in my amateur opinion, be a fiduciary if you aren't lock in step with the loan officer. And so you have to know where they want their payments and what interest rate roughly they qualify for, so that you, anytime you look at a property, anytime, whether it's digitally or in person, they can know what it costs out of pocket monthly payment.
Absolutely.
You can't do that if you're not working lock in step with a partner.
100%.
You're making numbers up.
And and to that step of it, to take that a little further, one of the biggest things that you guys have to deal with is when you're negotiating with the other side.
For sure.
And the other side's got an ego, and they won't put their ego aside to try to figure out how to make the deal work for everybody. And I don't understand that with real estate agents. Like, why are some agents don't want to like move out of their own way? The goal is let's sell the house for the seller, get the house for the buyer. Let's make a deal happen. And sometimes some people, they don't even want to get on the phone. I've noticed some of these agents and stuff. It's like, man, why? Like, why don't you want to work together? If you work together on a deal, I feel like you're in.
Markets humble everyone. And the bottom of the market here is '09. We're sitting here in 2026. And it takes a shift, which we haven't seen one, which is why the energy is where it's at. They won't get on the phone. They'll get on the phone when their income adjusts 40%. Right. They'll get on the phone.
I never thought of it like that. That's an interesting perspective. We've been through, we were humbled. That was a little different. So the agent that came in COVID and crushed it and has has not been humbled yet.
So absolutely.
That's a great point of view.
1,000%.
That's a great point of view.
And so the state of the market can always be correlated to two statistics: month supply of inventory and absorption rate. These are two statistics that most real estate agents have no idea how to calculate, and strongly recommend that be the two things anyone takes away from this podcast. Is when you learn these two numbers, those two numbers are the foundation of any negotiation, because a negotiation is a win-win or no deal. And it doesn't mean one side blasts the other side.
Right.
Now, in 2021, when there was a half a month of inventory.
Don't ever want to see that again.
Well, that's not healthy. It's not a healthy market. Now, it's awesome for a seller. It's horrible for a buyer. Just like as the pendulum moves, which that's the way markets work, is like a grandfather clock. Markets don't do this. Now, COVID, for example, the market did that, but that was an anomaly.
Yeah, it was a blip. It was wild.
We should have millions of people die so that a market goes like this. No, absolutely not.
Not only that, but how many? I don't know about you, but I have clients that regret their purchase because they just bought to get something. It was like a crazy grab, like a giveaway. You know, like they had to get it, and they're like, "Yeah, I probably should have waited a little bit or paid a slightly." Right now, if you're a buyer, you know, as of this day, you've got the pick of the litter, I feel like.
Dude, not only do you have the pick of the litter, you don't have to jump, and you have the ability to negotiate. And I say this to my clients and anytime I'm teaching a class. Amateurs focus on price, professionals focus on terms. And in a market that softens, which we're not in a soft market by any condo market soft, but the single family market is balance. And somewhat a buyer's market. In some areas, it's somewhat a seller's market. But we're like right there around 4 to 8 months. And depending on where.
It feels like when I bought my first place in like mid-2000, 2004. It feels like that. Feels like probably when you first bought, right? Like it was in the middle.
Yeah. And we can negotiate terms, which are, as you shared, concessions, so that we can wrap your closing costs into the loan, which totally makes sense.
Right.
Like, why would you, if you're, that goes back to an agent being able to correlate and coordinate with their loan officer to work the fee sheets in a negotiation. Like going into any negotiation, coordinate with the loan officer, say, hey, this property is listed at 400. It's been on the market at 400 for 45 days. Let's get a fee sheet at, if the seller won't budge at 400, worst case, let's get a 390 and a 360. Let's get a fee sheet. And then what interest rate should we be playing at? The agent uses their mortgage calculator, and you, as the loan officer, we all work lock and step. Hey, I'm getting the fee sheets from Joey. We're getting this together. We're rocking. We got your back. We're gonna write this offer here, looking at the comparables, which we sit down, look at the comparables, so that we have an idea of where the seller may counter and where we can stay in the market versus emotionally throwing numbers around. Not only from the offer standpoint, but from when they counter. I now have empirical data from doing this work with the buyer to speak to the listing agent of, help me understand how you came up with that.
Right.
You show me how you got your number, because I can show you how I came up with mine. Let's just have a conversation about this.
Yep.
I know the seller wants the most, and I know the buyer wants the least. I get that. We're aligned. And do you have another offer? No, I don't. Then let's talk.
Let's make this one work.
Let's talk.
Yeah.
And we still got an appraisal to play with. So if your is coming from emotion, what I hear you saying is that when this doesn't appraise, because here's where all of the comparables are, if you got something different, this is what we got, these numbers. So are you saying the seller won't meet appraisal?
Yeah.
And now we go back to the ego conversation where it's like, hey, here's where we are. Let's work together.
Yeah.
Um,
And I feel like when that happens, the deal goes through. And when you can't align all parties, it makes it so difficult, I feel like. And that just, I think that takes experience. I think that takes, obviously the time that you went through the markets you've been through.
Yeah.
I mean, at least as long as I've been alive, you've been alive, some of the toughest markets out there.
for sure.
And who knows? And now I'm curious, like, what do you think? What do you see coming in the next 12 months, 18 months? What do you think?
So I'm always going to pay attention to month supply of inventory and absorption rate.
So how's that been going like the last 6 months?
Inventory has been continuing to grow. And the fact that, let me say this differently. If in the state of Florida, the homestead tax scenario happens, that's the Yahtzee or the Ace of Spades. So let's put this over here because that's going
to be wild for us.
that's an absolute
Game changer.
unfathomable thought in the most beautiful way. And where's all those taxes going to come from as a different side point? But that's a story for another day. If inventory is growing, which it is, the bottom of the market happens with have-to sellers. And a have-to versus want-to seller is fundamentally different. A have-to, the sale is outside of their control. And they all start with the letter D.
Yeah.
Divorce, debt, diamonds, diapers, deployment, deportation, and the job, relocation.
The job.
The
I like
job.
that.
Now, the deportation part is kind of, people joke about it and think it's political.
But it happens.
Well, yeah, man, you're an investor who is making ends meet and you just lost your tenant. Like, that's real. That's happening here.
Yeah.
Now, when inventory is growing and the only way for inventory to be absorbed is economics 101, is just like a department store or Publix, the BOGO. I mean, my hypothesis with BOGO is they got over inventory in these things and they just, hey, let's turn this thing around.
Yeah, it's probably right.
They know the next month or in 2 weeks, and they're always getting ahead of their over inventory. Well, if inventory is moving this way, the pendulum, the grandfather clock, the only way for inventory to grow, for it to be absorbed because it's growing, is to drop the price. Well, if at mass, no one's adjusting their price, no, again, at mass, the only ones that will adjust their price are the have-tos. Well, in the condo market, that's what you're seeing.
Oh, yeah.
You're the third price unit in a building, unless you have far better features and benefits, you're sitting on the market.
Yeah.
Which is why inventory is up.
The ones that sell in the buildings are the ones that are priced the lowest.
The lowest with the most features and benefits. Yeah. Absolutely. And so until there's a catalyst, the inventory is going to continue to grow. And we're going to see what gets absorbed are the most features and benefits at the lowest price.
Yeah.
Until the ball drops or the shoe drops.
So we got a few things, right? We have the possible taxes.
Yep.
The homestead, which would
keep this thing moving.
Yep. Which would be something crazy,
Mhm.
right? I think we'd be really busy.
Right.
And I agree with you. I don't know where the money's going to come from, so I don't know how that works. Or interest rates, right? Interest rates were just at a 3-year low 15 days ago. Now, this whole thing with Iran happens, oil prices are spiked up, inflation fears, rates are up. And when I mean up, let's talk.
Right, we're talking
like
8%.
right. We're talking like, it was like, I was locking people in the mid 5s.
Beautiful.
Now we're at 6.
Sure.
And we're not talking like the end of the world.
Right.
You know, and one thing that I just talked to a client today, and he's like, man, I wish the other deal would have worked out. My inspections were bad. Rates were better. And I was like, you know what? You have 40 days on your next closing per your contract. We should have watched the rate. We'll float it. I was like, and honestly, people that try to time the market, that's my always message to people. There's no such thing as a perfect time. And I'm going to circle back to what you first said in the beginning. Real estate always appreciates at the end of the day. And it's a wealth building. I think people don't see that. And I think I read a statistic somewhere. I read a statistic that people that have property have 40% more net worth than people don't. Than renters. So it's like, people say, well, how do you like what you do? I'm saying, well, number one, it's easy. I have to sell shelter. Like, I literally help people find a place to live, right? I help with them, the loan side of it, but I help. So it's easy for me to do what I do because I love what I do, but it's also easy for me to sell this product because you need it. It's like we need air,
right?
You know, like you have to have a place to live. So here's the thing. Do you want a place to live that you're not going to make any money on? Or do you want a place to live? Listen, real estate's been great to me. And I went through the crash like you did. Real estate has been, the house I live in now, sure. It did go, it depreciated but it now, I think, you know, COVID happened and it's doubled.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's wild.
So there's a sales model that as a loan officer, you could teach it to your agents, and as an agent, this is a model that you can use, which is if you have a bunch of folks on the fence, which means you've been lead generating, you have rapport with a bunch of people, they're just sitting on the fence. Simply build out a chart of 4.5%, 4 3/4, 5, 5 1/4, and just build it out and say what number would get you off the fence. Now, the ace of spades is always the payment, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, mortgage insurance, flood insurance, HOA, right? That's the trump. But like in this way to stay in connection, now you got a pipeline that the moment interest rates start touching anywhere near there, you have a reason to now
touch them.
Absolutely. Because most of the time it's a smokescreen. It's not about the interest rate. It's about something else that needs to be uncovered, because the interest rate is a payment. Just like getting price adjustments for a seller is never about the price adjustment. It's about their net. It's never about commission. It's about net. It's never about interest rate.
And their net and their next move.
Yes.
Yeah, it's their net and their next move. I agree. Man, it was really good, you know, talking about this with you, getting your opinion, especially, you know, like I said, as long as we've both been in the industry, being on the ups and the downs. When you say cyclical, I always think of this, right? I see all those charts, right? The ebbs and flows, however you want to say it. Real estate is definitely cyclical. It's one thing that I will say, and I think you can agree probably, is that since we've been through it all, we've seen it all, you know, we can advise on it. And I think I told you eventually I want to become a coach for a mortgage side of it. You know, you can give advice on it. And that's probably what's helped you so much to be able to coach 33 clients across who knows how many different markets. And that's awesome, man. I'm glad that you're able to do that. I'm glad you're doing well at KW Aventura. And, you know, I'm glad thank you for coming out and doing this with me.
This is anytime, man. This is fun.
We got to do it again. This was a good time. It's pretty funny. You know, we talked about prep work. What did we talk about? 4 different things. And I was like, it's just going to go. I'm like, we've been in so long. This will be an easy one.
Always.
Always.
So hopefully you had fun too.
I did. I had a great time. So it was a good time. And I appreciate you coming out, man. Especially on a Monday.
On a Monday.
On a Monday.
Yeah. So my coaching days are Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for the most part. So Mondays and Fridays are for real estate, are for my real estate team, and also for traveling.
Right. Awesome. Well, good, man. Well, thanks a lot for your time, Lee.
Yes.